Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Wrong Enemy, America in Afghanistan, 2001 to 2014, by Carlotta Gall, narrated by Jennifer M. Dixon. We may be fighting the wrong enemy in the wrong country. The late Richard C. Holbrooke, U.S. Special Representative to Afghanistan and Pakistan. Forward. I arrived in the town of Mazar-e-Sharif in northern Afghanistan on a cold evening in November 2001, just days after the Taliban had fled. 2 months had passed since the attacks of 9/11, and 1 month since America had gone to war in Afghanistan. The U.S. Air Force had been bombing Afghanistan since October the 7th, set on chasing down al-Qaeda and toppling the Taliban government that harboured its leaders. I had crossed the strictly controlled border from Uzbekistan, thanks to an Afghan friend. I had not seen him for 6 years, but he had helped my father travel into Afghanistan during the Soviet occupation and decided to help his friend's daughter cover this war. It was one of the reasons I came to love the Afghans. Friendship and loyalty mattered. I had visited Mazar-e-Sharif several times in the 1990s and knew it as a busy trading town, its streets spanning out from the glorious turquoise dome and tiled walls of the shrine of Hazrat Ali in its central square. I was shocked at how impoverished the city and its inhabitants had become. They had suffered 2 terrible massacres in 4 years under the Taliban and lived under virtual blockade. Thousands of families, displaced by the war and Afghanistan's worst drought in decades, had moved to the city in search of work and food. The streets were clogged with horse carts, street stalls, and labourers pulling loads through the potholes. Families carrying children in their arms stepped through the mud to the central hospital. Scores of women begged on the mud-slicked streets, their faces hidden behind the lattice screen of the burqa, the head-to-toe pleated veil that turned women into soulless beings. The only part of their body visible was a calloused hand stretched out to passers-by. Everyone was cold and hungry. The restaurants and tea shops were empty because of Ramadan. Street stalls sold imported fruit juice and stale biscuits, but there was not an egg to be had in the whole city. I was reporting for the New York Times, one of 24 correspondents scrambled and sent to the region in the weeks after 9/11. I would end up staying for over a decade, engrossed in America's struggle in Afghanistan. The Afghans would overthrow the Taliban and embrace peace, only to falter and slip back, dragged into a fight that few of them wanted. I packed up and left my previous post in the Balkans and went to live in Kabul, staying with the story even as the world's attention was drawn away to Iraq. For me, Afghanistan was always the most important news story of the time. It was where 9/11 began and would finally be answered. It was where my reporting life had started, and from where rose this great wave of Islamism that has powered many of today's wars. By 2001, I had been reporting on wars for nearly 8 years, 5 in Russia, where I covered the war in Chechnya closely, and 3 in the Balkans, chronicling the war in Kosovo and the fall of Slobodan Milosevic for the New York Times. At the time of 9/11, I was reporting on NATO's most pressing concern, an incipient guerrilla movement in Macedonia on the border with Kosovo. I watched the attack on the Twin Towers with fellow journalists in a hotel bar in Skopje. I knew immediately that Osama bin Laden was behind the attacks. I knew the story would lead back to Afghanistan, and I felt dread for the Afghans. Afghanistan had featured large in my life for nearly 20 years, ever since the early days of the Soviet invasion. As a Russian-language student, I had met drunken Red Army soldiers back from Afghanistan in a Soviet bar. The war was never officially acknowledged, but those conscripts told hair-raising stories of Afghan guerrillas mutilating soldiers caught on the battlefield.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?